Do you remember in Acts how one of the Herods, who, after all, is supposed to be Jewish, but who has a lot of Gentile subjects, makes an utterance, and the crowd say, "This is not the voice of a man, but of God."
Yes.
Absolutely typical Hellenistic devotion to the ruler. Very un-Jewish, of course, and you know what happens to Herod as a result. You can see how useful this could be politically as a focus of unity. Because it doesn't interfere with any other form of religion. You can do what you like. You can belong to as many cults as you wish. There's nothing exclusive about it. Well, the Greek empires passed away, as empires do, and as happens to empires, were succeeded by a greater power. In this case, the Romans. What did the Romans make of Hellenistic civilization as they extended their rule over the Greek world? In effect, they bought into it, accepted it accepted this twofold division of Greeks and barbarians. Notice how Paul uses that. I'm debtor to the Greeks and to the barbarians. In other words, to everybody. There's only two sorts of humanity in this Hellenistic outlook. And basically the Romans accept that. Except, of course, that they say that Greek includes Latin. In the Roman Empire, Greek remained the language of the eastern half. The language, in fact, of most of the inhabitants of the Roman Empire. Even though the Latin was the indigenous language of the Romans, and Latin continued to be spoken in the western half of the empire. So we have to begin to think of a Roman Empire that is based on the Mediterranean, that has all the shores of the Mediterranean and has a moving frontier in the north, across Europe. A bit of a moving frontier in the east too, because there is only one power, one other superpower, that can cope with Rome on anything like equal terms, and that's the Persian Empire. So, your two superpowers, this one based on the Mediterranean, this one based on Iran, another one going up over here in China, but we'll think about that another time. And everybody else, the territory of the barbarians. And everybody beyond the frontier, north or south, are barbari if you're speaking Latin, or barbaroi if you're speaking Greek. And the Romans encouraged the spread of Greek language. It helped globalization. It helped political control if everybody's speaking the same language. So the indigenous languages of the Eastern Mediterranean area are falling through. Romans also saw the political use of this idea of divine kingship. Rome had originally been a republic. It gradually became an empire. And some of the emperors could see that divine kingship was quite a good idea if you were emperor. It helped to make the emperor the focus if he was a divinity. Old Romans didn't like this idea. They didn't like all these Eastern ideas. Do you remember that? I think it's about the first reference we've got in a non-Christian writer to Christianity, where Tacitus, the historian Tacitus, describes Nero's persecution of the Christians, and says the Christians, this is a superstition that came in from the East, where all the rubbish comes from. And old Romans thought of all these Eastern cults as being the same. Christianity is one more of these Eastern cults that immigrants bring to Rome. And they all come to Rome in the end, and they're a nuisance. And so old Romans don't like the idea of the emperor being divine, but can see that it's useful in the eastern half of the empire where people do have divine kingship. So you get the idea that sacrifices can be offered to the spirit of the empire. And you can expect anybody to make that sacrifice. It's not really, it's a religious act, but it isn't preventing any other religion you have. But you can expect loyalty to the emperor to be wrapped up in making a token sacrifice. There's one group of people who stubbornly refused the globalizing effect, and that was the Jews. One of the Greek empires, the Syrian empire, did try to destroy Jewish culture completely. The emperor forbade circumcision. Circumcised babies were killed and hung round their mothers' necks. The temple in Jerusalem was ritually profaned. It led to a Jewish revolt, and that revolt was successful. And in the 2nd century, Israel, having been a subject people, became a free nation again, its culture having weathered the storm. The Romans accepted that the Jews were different. Julius Caesar found, when he tried to recruit them into the army, that they wouldn't march on the Sabbath, and decided that these people are different, let them do it their own way. So they become a licensed exception, and everyone knows that they won't sacrifice to the emperor or anyone else. Such a peculiar people remain peculiar, a licensed exception to all the other rules in the midst of a globalizing society. Can you see the difficulty coming for Christians in this sort of setting. Jews are an exception, but they're an exception definable on ethnic grounds. If you're going to get other people who are saying there is only one God and we can make no even token recognition than the other, then this is potentially subversive, undermining imperial unity. So this is one side of the invasion of Hellenistic civilization by the Christian gospel. You are opening up a political frontier whereby your loyalty to the emperor is going to be in question, because you will not do what all other citizens are required to do and have no difficulty in doing. You act like Jews, but you are not Jews. The other area where this is going to arise as a major difficulty is this intellectual framework, the framework of Greek culture. And within this framework, you can be as critical as you like of the divinities in the temple. Many Greek philosophers, Socrates is a good example, says the gods worshipped in the temples are not gods. They have no reality. So you have this intellectual framework, but how do you approach the intellectual framework of Greek, of Hellenistic civilization? Your great difficulty is Christianity is too recent. It's invented the day before yesterday. And what is it about? What is this gospel I'm talking about? What's this good news? It's a story about a Jewish carpenter that all happens in one corner of the empire. It's got nothing to do with Plato. It's got nothing to do with the canons of thought that have been worked out over centuries. It's a cult, and there are lots of cults. Yes, there's the Lord Serapis, parallel to the Lord Jesus. And lots of people like these cults, and they get a bit of excitement from them, and perhaps they feel more safe if they've enrolled in them. But it's just more Eastern rubbish.